I'm Lisa Gromlich. I'm Dean of the College of the Environment at the University of Washington. The College of the Environment brings together students, faculty, and research staff to understand the Earth from its core to the edge of the solar system. And we do it for a purpose. We are interested in the sustainability of the planet. In the food series, we brought together some of the world's most innovative thinkers. We did this because we wanted to foster a greater dialogue on the campus about food and the environment, but to also reach out and bring that dialogue into the community as well. The food lecture series included lectures by Gabisa Ajita, Roz Naylor, Marion Nestle, Ray Hilborn, Claude Fischler, Cary Fowler, Gary Nabhan, and Wes Jackson. The lectures included The Battle Over Biofuels by Roz Naylor.
The goal for us is to say, how can we balance our interests in this new fuel source and rural revitalization with, really not impoverishing the poorest populations as well. And our move towards the more advanced biofuels, where the tax credits are much higher, will certainly help.
Food Politics, Advocacy for Social Change by Marion Nestle.
Food outside the home tends to have more calories than food inside the home, particularly fast food. And so between 1980 and the present, there was an enormous growth in sales of food outside the home, and particularly fast food. If food is cheap, you can make larger portions, which are a bargain and everybody loves, and people will buy more of your product. And the larger portions have more calories. If I had one thing I could teach, it would be that. And you laugh, but I trust me, it's not obvious.
Social Sciences, Nutrition and the Meal by Claude Fischler.
In our culture, the stigma is, and the stereotype is that obese people have a lack of will. They cannot control themselves. But in traditional societies, that's not so much the point. The point is, how come they ate more than they should have? Because anything that they've eaten that was more than necessary was necessarily taken away from someone else.
Eating Fish to Save the Rainforest by Ray Hilborn.
Now, I would argue there's more than 30% biodiversity loss on an organic farm, okay? And this is what used to be there. We didn't do it, okay? We didn't do it. It was already done. But West Coast rainforest had been chopped down, burned up, and turned into farms. I mean, that's just the facts of life. If you want to produce farmland, that's where it comes from. Now, I want to point out there's a big difference between the land and the water. That in the land, when we produce food in the land, we destroy the primary production. And if you think about how fisheries work, fisheries don't do that. We basically leave the primary producers, the phytoplankton, alone. We leave almost all the secondary, the zooplankton, alone, and we harvest the top end.
Feeling the Heat, Food and Famine in a Finite World by Cary Fowler.
Seed banks operate a little bit like libraries. You can have books, your favorite novel, on your bookshelf at home, but of course you appreciate the fact that the library also has a copy of that book, right? And the same thing works with seed banks. It's great that the farmers are growing them, but it's nice to have a copy back up in the library. In this case, it's a sort of a library of life.
The Ecosystem as a Measure, 50 Years to Perennial Sustainability by Wes Jackson.
Realize that there is something we can do about keeping ourselves fed through this dark tunnel that many of us anticipate that's coming. But first it requires keeping the soils intact and the water, and then a social structure that is sufficiently coherent and behind it to see the necessity and keep it sustained. So one of the things we had in mind here 2 or 3 years ago was, instead of a 5-year farm bill in this country, we need a 50-year farm bill.
Collaborative Conservation to Restore America's Wild Food Diversity by Gary Nabhan.
When you know where your foods come from, you can give something back to those lands and waters. That rural culture, that migrant harvester, curer, smoker, poacher, or vintner. You can give something back to that glacial tilled soil, something fecund and fleeting like compost, or something lasting and legal like protection. We as humans have not been given roots as obvious as those of plants. The surest way that we have to lodge ourselves within this blessed earth is by knowing where our food comes from.
The College of the Environment brings together the best minds to address the greatest of environmental challenges. And in doing so, we are having a global impact. We work on every continent and in every ocean on this planet. To foster this dialogue, we engaged with the Graduate School and the Alumni Association in a partnership which then engaged literally dozens of other organizations within the campus and in the larger community.